Hello, welcome back. The title of this lesson is called Order of Operations. This is part 1. So in this lesson, we're going to learn how to calculate things. Do we do multiplication first? Do we do exponents first? Do we do subtraction last? All of these kinds of questions, and the problems are going to go from fairly simple to pretty complex fairly quickly. We have to learn the order in which to do the calculations to get the correct answer. So let me show you an extremely simple problem that illustrates what we're really trying to figure out here. Let's take the following problem. 10 divided by, so a little division symbol here, 5, and then multiplied by 2. So we have two operations going on. We have division, and then we also have multiplication. Now, the question is, do you divide first, like 10 divided by 5, and then get the result, and then multiply by 2? Or do you come over here and do the multiplication first? 5 times 2 is 10, and then 10 divided by the result of what you got here. So we have to know the order in which to do things. And we also have exponents and parentheses and other things to consider. So let me write on the board the order of operations. I'm going to show you that what some people remember this list, this order of operations with. Some people use the word PEMDAS to remember this list. PEMDAS can get you into trouble. I don't want you to use it. I'll show you why. And then we will work a lot of problems to show you how to calculate these things, and after a while it becomes second nature. So let me show you the way that I would like you to remember these things. It's a very short list. The very first thing you do when you're looking at a expression is you do any parentheses, anything inside of parentheses first. When you put parentheses in an expression, it literally means do this first. If you have multiple nested parentheses, you just go to the innermost first and do that first. All right, number one, always the same thing. All right, the next thing that you try to do, or that you do in order of priority, is any exponents. So if you have any squares or cubes, you do that next. All right, after that, you just work on any multiplications and divisions. But notice that multiplication and division are in the same line here. So multiplication is not more important than division. It doesn't come before division, right? Or division doesn't come before multiplication. They're at the same level, right? So that's why I have them in the priority order of number 3 in the same line. So if we have multiplication and division happening at the same in the same expression like we do here, we just do it like reading a book, left to right, all right? And the last thing you always work on is addition followed, or I shouldn't say followed, but addition and subtraction. Again, addition doesn't come before subtraction. They are both at the same priority level, okay? So it's literally only 4 rules, and people make such a big deal out of order of operations. It isn't a big deal. It becomes very second nature after a while. Any parentheses, do them first. Any exponents, do them next. Next, you do any multiplications and divisions. They're at the same priority order, so you do them left to right like reading a book. Addition and subtraction, again, they're at the same priority level. You do them left to right like reading a book. Now let me show you the gotcha that people have here. All right, some people use the word PEMDAS. All right, there are other words that people use to remember this, but this is one that's very popular. What it means is P for parentheses, then E for exponents, then multiplication and division, here's the multiplication and division, then addition and subtraction, here it is. And it's a nice little word that does help you kind of remember the list. The problem with it is that a lot of students, especially after they learn it maybe a year or 2 later, they think that because the M is here before the D, multiplication comes before division. And they also think addition comes before subtraction, but that is not true. I'm going to say that PEMDAS is not true. Multiplication does not come before division. Let's explore why. Let's take a look at our problem. According to PEMDAS, you would say, well, there's no parentheses here. I don't have to worry about that. There's no exponents. I don't worry about that. So I'm going to do multiplication first. So you say, well, I have multiplication right here. So what I'm going to do is 10 divided by, I'm going to evaluate the multiplication. 5 times 2 is 10. And then you're going to say, well, then finally 10 divided by 10 is 1. Okay, so I'm going to draw a gigantic X through this because this is not correct. So I don't want you to use PEMDAS. It leads you down the wrong direction. If you put this into a calculator or a computer, the answer will not come out as 1, right? What will the answer be? Let's calculate the answer correctly. Let's do it again. 10 divided by 5 times 2. All right, so we go the way I like to organize it. You do any parentheses, okay, there's nothing there. Any exponents, okay, there's none there. Then we do multiplications and division. They're at the same priority level. In this case, we have multiplication and division both happening, so we don't really just pick one over the other. We just, since they're at the same level, we do them left to right, just like reading a book. The first operation we encounter is the division. We do that first. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And then finally we have this, the result of this is 2. We have to then multiply by the 2, and then we get an answer of 4. This is correct. So you can see that when you do it the correct way, you get an answer of 4. If you put this in a calculator or a computer, it will tell you the answer is 4. If you calculate it the wrong way, trying to use PEMDAS incorrectly, it gives you the wrong answer. So I do not like using this. If you want to remember it, I can't stop you. But a year from now, you're going to probably think multiplication comes before division, and it doesn't. So just kind of forget that word. It's only 4 rules. Let's solve our problems. And in the course of solving our problems, we will remember what to do, I promise you. Let's take a look at our first real problem. 8 divided by 2. That's in parentheses. Then we have plus 6 minus 9. So the very first thing you do is what? Parentheses. That's the first thing you just do, always. P for parentheses. So you ignore everything here and you focus on what's in the parentheses. Now I have an 8 divided by 2 in there. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And once I evaluate what's in here, I can kind of drop the parentheses because I've already done it. And then I rewrite the rest of the problem, plus 6 minus 9. Now I look. What do I have? I have additions and subtractions. You see, I did the parentheses. I did not have any exponents, so I skip over that. Right? I also do not have any multiplications or divisions left here. And then the only thing I have is addition and subtraction. But again, one is not more important than the other. I just go left to right like reading a book. So 4 plus 6 is 10. But then I still have to subtract that 9. And so the answer I get, 10 minus 9, is 1. And this is the final answer. After a while, you will not have to remember anything. All you have to think about is, well, I do parentheses first and then exponents. And then after that, I multiply, divide, left to right, like reading a book. And then after that, I do addition and subtraction, again, left to right, like reading a book. Let's go on to the next problem. All right, let's say I have 20, and then I'm going to divide by 2 squared, and then plus 3 times 2. So again, first thing is always parentheses. Do I have any parentheses? No, I don't. Next thing, exponents. Do I have any exponents? Yes, I do. So I ignore everything else and only focus on this. So everything else in the problem gets rewritten. 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is just 4. And I just rewrote the rest of the problem. Then I take a look again. I've done the exponents. What comes next? Any multiplications and divisions must happen next. I have a division here. I have a multiplication here. Essentially, I can do them in 2 steps, doing this one first, followed by this one because they're left to right like reading a book. Or, in fact, I can do them both in parallel, kind of at the same time, because notice that multiplication and division are at the same level. So it's not that one comes before the other. It's just a little easier usually to just go left to right like reading a book. So let's just do it that way. 20 divided by 4 is 5. I'm going to rewrite the rest of the problem, plus 3 times 2. Now I have addition and multiplication. I have to do that multiplication first. 3 times 2 is 6. And then 5 plus 6, that's the only thing left. That's the last thing. Addition always comes last. The answer is 11, and that's the final answer. All right. I promise you, after a few problems, you won't even look at this list. Let's just try again one more time. Parentheses, then exponents, then any multiplications and divisions must happen, and they're at the same priority level. And then you have any additions and subtractions. Again, they're at the same priority level as well. So let's take a look at the next problem. What about 4 plus 2 to the power of 3, close that parentheses, divide by 12. So without looking at the list, the first thing we have to do is parentheses. Now inside this parentheses, we have 2 things happening. We have addition and exponents. What comes first between an addition and an exponent? Addition always comes dead last. You can see that right here. Exponents are always higher. So inside of this set of parentheses, which we must do first, we have to do the 2 cubed. Now if you don't remember, 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So 2 cubed works out to be 8. And we just rewrite the problem. Now, again, inside the parentheses, we haven't finished the calculations. Now the only thing left is addition. 8 plus 4 is 12, and now we can drop the parentheses because we finished calculating. And then the answer we get, the only thing left to do is the division, and 12 divided by 12 is 1. This is the final answer. All right? And notice that we did reference the the list over here, but not for very much. And pretty soon I'm going to stop referencing it altogether. Next problem. Let's take a look at negative 3 plus 15, close parentheses here, divide by 2 squared, close the bracket, plus 5 times 6. Now when you see parentheses and brackets, the brackets function the same as parentheses. We just use brackets because they look a little different. We could use nested parentheses, but when you have a bunch of parentheses, it's hard to read. But here the brackets are very easy to see that they go together, so we go, again, order of operations says parentheses, but brackets and parentheses function the same. So we go to the brackets, we must do what's inside of here. But inside of here we have, you know, the squaring and this, and we have another set of parentheses. We must go to the innermost set of parentheses. So, what do we have in here? Negative 3 plus 15. You add these guys together, 15, you know, minus 3 if you want to think of it that way. You get 12. You can then drop these parentheses when you calculate. The rest of what we have going on here, we just rewrite it. When you get some experience, you can kind of skip steps a little bit, but in the beginning, I really want you to rewrite everything every time. Now again, we're inside of this bracket. We have to do what's in here, but the exponent will come first. So 12 divided by, what is 2 squared? 2 times 2 is 4. Again, I'm rewriting the problem again. All right. Next, the bracket. This bracket hasn't gone away. We're not done. 12 divided by 4, that's 3. Now we can finally drop that bracket because we are finished calculating. Now what's going to come first between addition and multiplication? Remember, multiplication and division are higher priority level than addition or subtraction, so we have to do the multiplication first, even though it's at the end. So 5 times 6 is 30. And then finally we add these guys and we get an answer of 33. And that is the final answer. Notice a couple of things. Every time I'm just choosing to do one thing, and that one thing is governed by the order of operations. And after I do that one thing, I'm rewriting the whole problem again. I'm not skipping ahead, trying to do too many things at once, because theoretically, as I'm working on this, I could do this out here, I could do the exponent, because I know it's not going to interfere with the final answer. But in the beginning, I want you to just do one thing at a time. And also work vertically. Notice I'm not putting equal signs here, I'm not going left to right. It's much easier to follow if everything is just getting kind of smaller and finally ending up here at the answer. All right, we're done with that list. I'm not using the list anymore. We're going to get all of the following problems solved just from memory. Let's take a look at 35 minus 3 times 4 squared minus 10. All right, first thing, parentheses. We have to do what's in here. So I'm not going to do any of this other stuff. 35 minus 3. And then between exponent and subtraction, exponent must come first. 4 times 4 is 16. I'm just rewriting the rest of the problem now. Now again, I'm still inside of this parentheses. 16 minus 10 must come next. Even though usually subtraction is last, because it's in the parentheses, I have to do it first. And I get 6. Now I have subtraction and multiplication. Remember, after parentheses comes multiplying and dividing, then addition and subtraction. I must multiply first. So 35 minus 6 times 3 is 18. And then 35 minus 18 works out to be 17. That's the only thing left to do. And if you want to just go in your mind, 35 go down by 10 to 25, and then 8 more is down, going 8 more is 17. That's the final answer. All right, that's over halfway done. Only 2 or 3 more problems. Now let's take a look at this. 22 minus 3 times 2. All of that is in the numerator of a fraction where the denominator is 5 plus 3. Now, a lot of students get confused here because there's no rule in the order of operations to tell you what to do when you have a giant fraction. Let me give you a tip. It's more than a tip. It's the thing that'll save you when you're doing these kinds of problems. When you have a fraction, whatever is in the numerator and the denominator, even if it's not written here, you need to imagine an invisible set of parentheses that are kind of surrounding the numerator and the denominator. And they're not written there, but that fraction bar divides the top, but it's the entire top divided by whatever is on the bottom. So because of the way fractions work, the top has to be calculated first before you can divide by the bottom. And so this division that's happening with the fraction bar has to come last. So basically just envision parentheses surrounding the numerator and the denominator, and then it tells you right away, well, order of operations says I must do that first. All right, I'm going to break my own rule a little bit and go to the right and start to calculate the numerator here. We have, inside of this invisible parentheses, we have subtraction and multiplication. I must multiply first, so I have 22 minus 6. On the bottom, I have parentheses. I can do parentheses in parallel because they both have to be done first before anything else. Of course, I don't have to. I could rewrite the whole thing, and then the next thing I would do would be this set of parentheses, but it's okay to work on separate parts of the expression as long as you're still following the order of operations. So 5 plus 3 is 8. Now again, there are invisible parentheses around here, so the next thing I have to calculate is the numerator. 22 minus 6 is 16 on the top, and then I have 8 on the bottom. And now, finally, when I get a single number and a single number, I can perform the division, which is the last thing here. 16 divided by 8 is 2. And so 2 is the final answer. So anytime you see a fraction bar with an expression on the top and an expression on the bottom, just remember that there are invisible parentheses surrounding the numerator and the denominator, and that will basically tell you what to do to solve the problem. And let's go ahead and get some practice with that right here. Let's say we have 36 divided by 4 minus negative 5 plus 7. And then this is all in the numerator, gigantic numerator of 4 minus negative 3. So because there's an invisible parentheses around here and an invisible parentheses around here, if you want to draw them there, you can. You don't have to. I'll put them here. Then you're kind of free to work on the numerator and the denominator separately and follow the rules inside. Now, usually I like to work down, but if I don't work sideways a little bit, I'll never fit the last problem on the board. So inside this parentheses, we have another set of parentheses. We have to do this first. So I'm just going to rewrite 36 divided by 4 minus, and then what we have in here, negative 5 plus 7, that's just 2. So this calculates to 2, so then I can drop the parentheses. And in the bottom, I have an invisible set of parentheses. I can turn this into 4 plus 3. Negative negative makes a positive, 4 plus 3. So again, I move along and I say there are invisible parentheses here. I have division and subtraction. Division comes first, always. So 36 divided by 4 is 9, so there's a 9. The minus 2, I'm just going to write along because it goes there. And then 4 plus 3 is 7. There's invisible parentheses surrounding the numerator and the denominator, so I can work on them separately. 9 minus 2, again, there's invisible parentheses. I have to do that first, is 7. And then 7 divided by 7 is 1. So the fraction division that you're doing here is the very last step. Now notice how complex the original problem looked, but by thinking through it and doing it the way I'm showing you, it's really not very much work. All right, we have our very last problem. And here it is. It is 9 plus, parentheses, 6 plus 2 minus 5, parentheses squared. All of that is in the numerator. And then 50 divided by 9 minus 4, parentheses minus 1. So again, I'm not going to draw them, but they're invisible parentheses around the numerator and the denominator, so I can begin working. In the numerator, I have this parentheses. I must go and do what's inside. I have addition and subtraction. Remember, addition and subtraction are at the same priority level. We just do them left to right. All right, so I'm going to do them left to right in here. So what am I going to get? I'm going to have 9 plus, and then what is, just go left to right, 6 plus 2, that's 8, and then 8 minus 5 is 3. So it's going to calculate to 3, and this whole thing was in the parentheses, and that means it must then be squared. So you could do it as 2 steps, but at this level, I think you can do a couple of things in parallel. So, well, it's not really in parallel, just one after another. 6 plus 2 is 8, and then 8 minus 5 is 3, and then that result has to be squared. In the bottom, I have this parentheses I must do first, and 9 minus 4. What is that? 9 minus 4 is 5. So we'll put a 5 right there. And then I have minus 1. I can drop the parentheses after I calculate the 5. All right, what's going on here in the numerator? I have invisible parentheses. I must do, between addition and exponent, I must do the exponent first. So I have 9 plus 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. And on the bottom, again, I have to do what's down here. I'm going to have to do this division before the subtraction. Division comes first. 50 divided by 5 is 10. And then I'm going to have to subtract 1 right here. right? And then on the top, again, invisible parentheses, 9 plus 9, I have 18. And then on the bottom, 10 minus 1 is 9. And so finally, I have number divided by number, and 18 divided by 9 is 2. So that's the final answer. So you can see how we have gone from a very simple problem that's just a couple of little operations through kind of intermediate stage problems, and then introducing the idea that when you get to any sort of fraction, the numerator must be fully calculated before, and the denominator must be fully calculated as if there are invisible parentheses surrounding them. And then when you get those numbers, you divide the answer. But beyond that, the order of operations is very simple. At this point, by practicing, you'll understand parentheses first, right? Then any exponents, then any multiplications and divisions. They're at the same priority level, right? And then, of course, you have additions and subtractions, which are, again, at the same priority level. And if you have just a choice between multiplication and division, you do it left to right like reading a book, just like we did here. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and then the 2 times 2 is 4. If you trust this word like PEMDAS, there's other words that people use to help remember. Students often think the multiplication must come first, but if you do that first, you get the wrong answer. So I really encourage you to kind of like, don't use words, just remember what I'm telling you. Parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication and division left to right like reading a book, because they're at the same priority level, and then addition and subtraction left to right like reading a book for the exact same reason, because they're at the same priority level. So practice these. Follow me on to the next lesson. We'll get a little more practice with the order of operations.